Welcome to my dollhouse. I'm going to share with you the story of baby Bud. When I was like 10 or 11, and if you're from the 80s, 70s, 80s, you know that back then, like Butterick, Simplicity, they all came out with patterns to make your own soft sculpture, Cabbage Patch doll, type dolls. My mother her main hobby was the sewing machine, like sewing things, making things. She must have gotten it in her head one day to try to make a soft sculpture doll. I don't remember anything after or before this incident. I just remember her like, okay, the doll is finished. She presented the doll to me and I instantly fell in love. I think my dad is the one who named him Bud. I think he was named after Bud from Married with Children, but I'm not sure. Because if you look at the pattern, the doll was actually called Baby Bud. So I don't know if, whatever, but his name was Bud. That was his name. I loved him so much. I carried him with me everywhere. I remember taking him to the mall with me. That's the only memory I have of taking him out. Probably because his lifespan wasn't that long. Here's the thing about Baby Bud. Baby Bud had an abnormally large head. It was also a little... This is how I'm remembering him. I don't have a photo of him, unfortunately. I just remember him having like a skinny body and an abnormally large head. My mother didn't like Bud. I just remember her saying that, she would make these little comments about, I don't even remember. I just know that she didn't like him and she had it out for him from the beginning. And looking back now as an adult, it's because I know why. It's because she did not like what she created. It came out wrong. You know what I mean? So, like, for her to constantly see this doll that she thought of as a failure on her part, that it didn't come out the way it was supposed to, that shouldn't have mattered. All that should have mattered was how I felt about the doll. And I was in love with this doll, okay? I was in love with this doll. But she hated it. She hated it. And it was probably one of the my father and I never had like a relationship. But it was one of the maybe two things that he loved Bud. He thought Bud was great. He thought he was funny. He like respected Bud, you know what I'm saying? And he respected my relationship with Bud. And the day that we took him, we went out. I'm sorry, I keep rubbing my face because there's like cat fur on things and I'm getting it all over my hands because my hands are, so. My second memory is we went to the mall with my grandmother and we went to Friendly's. I remember sitting in Friendly's and I had Bud sitting next to me. And my grandmother was sitting next to Bud and my mother was sitting across from me. In the booth across from us was the same situation of a mother, grandmother, and the daughter. And at one point, my mother goes, she says like in a really low voice, "Did you hear what that girl said over there?" She said, "Look at that doll with the big head." And I just looked at my mother, and then I looked over at and I just knew that my mother was lying. And not to mention, I didn't care. I was that confident and that secure that I did not care. Even if this girl really said that, I didn't give a shit. It's like, I don't care. my bud. Like, I don't care what anyone says about him. And it's important to note that during the time that I had Bud, my mother would often say things like, maybe we should get rid of Bud. She would make remarks about his big head. You can't make this shit up. I'm not making this up. I swear to God. And if I asked my dad to this day, he would remember, and he would be like, yeah, I remember that. When I would get out of school, we lived right next door to where I went to grade school. It was like literally right next to my house. I would run home, and the first thing I would do would run upstairs, come in the door, run to my room, and get Bud and give him a big old hug, and I would just, he'd be in my arms the rest of the day. This is the third memory I have of Bud. I don't know how long I had him at this point. I remember running home, getting inside, running to my room, running to where Bud would be, and he was not there. And my heart just sank. Like, my face, my happiness just left my body. And I went to my mother and I was like, where's Bud? I think I knew, I had this feeling that she did something to him, but like I would have gone to her anyway and said, because that's my mom, and I was like, where's Bud? What happened to Bud? And I don't remember exactly what she said to me, but she got rid of him. He was gone. And I remember I became hysterical. I was crying, and I opened, it was very common back in those days. It was very common for the kitchen garbage to be like in a little garbage can under the sink, and that's where the garbage was. And I remember trying to open that cupboard to look in the garbage. She tried to block me. She either prevented me from opening it, or she tried to block me and I got it open and I didn't see him. So she actually went to great lengths while I was at school. She went into my room, she took Bud, and she got him out of the house. I don't know if he ended up in one of the trash bins in the shed. Like, I don't know what happened to him. And I don't remember much about, like, what I just told you is all I remember, until I remember my dad. Like, my dad is a very passive person. Like, he never got angry, he never yelled, he never hit. He was like the total opposite of my mom. And this was like one of the, like, probably the only time I remember my dad really raising his voice and getting angry at my mom. And he was hollering at her and saying, why would you throw her doll away? That's all I remember him saying, is why would you throw her doll away? But I know he said I just don't remember what else he said. But I remember him being very upset and saying, why would you throw her doll away? And I was hysterical. It was very traumatic. I mean, like, this is so traumatic to think of, like, and then, like, and I never stopped thinking about him. Like, as an adult, when the memories came back, and I would think about Bud, I would get emotional, I would get upset. Like, I wouldn't cry, but I would get, like, emotional, I would get angry. And I would just imagine him in a landfill somewhere, buried under decades of trash and garbage. And to know that my mom went out of her way to get him out of the house. I don't know where he ended up. And I just remember crying and cry. I mean, I was really emotionally traumatized by this. And it's all because she could not stand to look at something that she created that didn't come out the way the picture was. You know what I'm saying? That's why she did it. It wasn't enough that I loved the doll, that I was attached to the doll. She could not stand to look at this doll because it's something that she made that didn't come out right. And I don't think I could ever forgive her for that. I don't think I could ever forgive her. I know you're supposed to like forgive and forget, or forgive and move on. Fuck no. I would never do that to my child. Would you? That is sickening. I cannot believe she did that. Over a period of years, I went on eBay with the hope that maybe, just maybe, Bud, wherever he ended up after she took him out of the house, maybe he ended up in someone else's hands, like someone found him in the trash. You never know. I would go on eBay and look for a soft sculpture doll, hoping to find my Bud, because I would recognize him. After years of doing this, I saw this doll. So I found this doll on eBay, and I noticed the head. Now his head is misshapen, and the person selling the doll had pictures. You see the head? Totally misshapen. A little large in the back. You know what I'm saying? This doll reminds me of my Bud. I immediately bought him. I feel that Bud's spirit kind of came back, and this is a conduit to Bud's spirit. He's Bud 2.0. So this is Bud 2.0, and it's definitely comforting to hold him. Kind of relieves some of my anxiety. And it makes me feel better about the traumatic experience that I had with the original Bud. That's really all I have to say. It's a horrible thing what my mother did, and I'm gonna call this a video.